Once you realize this life truth, you'll know exactly what to immediately do next. Growing up, I used to think if people are not really earning money and not saving, and they just are focused on spending, I thought they're the most useless people ever. I was very money minded, very frugal. You can say cheap, you can say whatever you want. And I used to think, what value are these people doing if they're not literally spending their time for money? Because I didn't know any better. Because I just thought you have to spend time for money. How else would you ever make money? And when I got to know the simple truth that that's not how the world works necessarily, and I learned an even bigger lesson. I learned that it's not really about, making money, spending money, that type of thing, because money is made up. Money is not real. We should exchange value with seashells back in the day. Then, with these metal kind of coins, gold coins, bronze coins, silver, etc. And eventually all of this currency, it just gets heavy. It's not standardized, and there's all of this 101 about money that, I can talk our heads off. But the truth is, it's looking at the world as the simple question you need to ask yourself. Are you a producer or are you a parasite? And this may come off kind of strong, and it's not meant to ruffle your feathers. It's just a fact of, do you love to create or do you love to consume? And there's nothing wrong with both. But simultaneously, when you consume a lot, and this is coming from experience, you can play video games, you can eat junk food, you can waste your time, you can watch all the movies like a marathon every day forever and ever and ever. And consumption, just because it triggers that dopamine kind of neurotransmitter, if that's the right terminology, there's only so many times you can keep on kind of clicking that button for dopamine to be released, where the input to release the same amount of dopamine, you're going to need more of that input. You need more cuts in a movie. If you like action and, comedy movies, the jokes need to be funnier, the action needs to be crazier, right? Point is, consumption versus creation is a fine balance that I've learned, where consumption is easy. When you're a kid, when you're a baby, like you don't remember it, but you got to eat like a lot, a lot, a lot. You're sleeping, you're eating, 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 you're consuming, consuming, consuming to become like, the future grown version of yourself. And a lot of folks, when they're older, they basically say, hey, Johnny, Billy, don't eat, the sugar, there's, all these snacks and stuff like this, because later you'll pay for it, because you'll see when you're my age, you're going to feel this way and like all these things, right? And the point is, when you're older, you realize this. But when you're younger, you're not going to see that because there's no reference point. Everything's always been on the up, on the up, on the up. Like, all else equal, right? Albeit any health issues or otherwise, your life is like just like great, basically. If you have everything, basically your health is the main foundation in this kind of example. If you consume all your life, it gets kind of boring. I'm not going to lie. I told this to someone recently, and I told them, man, consuming like in this fashion is so like, oh, it's overrated. But it's just like somebody who has all the money in the world. Oh, money is not that big of a deal, man. Like once you have it, then like money doesn't buy happiness and blah blah blah. But a lot of people, they just don't have money, like enough of it or in abundance in their standard. So for them, they think, oh, it's the one thing I don't have, and if I had it, my life would be different. Yes, it would be different, but then once you have it, there's a different type of that next thing that makes your life different. And that's the part that nobody really talks about or gets to, and etc. So if you're a parasite, like for example, a lot of people on welfare or food stamps, a lot of people look at those type of people like, oh, they're poor, they're in poverty, and they're just abusing the system, and they're not really adding value to society. They're just using up taxpayers' dollars, and they're using my tax paid in the county and stuff for the lower echelon of the same folks in the community to then get XYZ benefit or in the state or what have us. That's its own kind of political argument. Some people could say, oh, they're, hey man, are you going to say don't help the people that are in poverty? Are you saying like, is everybody who's rich, are they bad? Everyone who's poor, they're all pure, gentle souls, and just unfortunately they don't make money? Like, it's not like this. When you know how the world works, it's basically that, hey, people at the top love to consume, but they also just happen to have been producing for maybe hundreds of years. I'm not going to say 1,000, but a lot of generational wealth. There was a lot of work that was initially done, and then to keep said outcome in terms of income, revenue, whatever, these big 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 companies, it's the same difference. It's them wanting to keep what they've produced long ago, so it can feel like they're the parasites in the sense of taking up resources from like the human race, let's say, or like in America specifically. It's using capital labor. This capital labor, in other words, human capital, is basically using the time of humans to use them as basically resources, right? To earn this thing called money, which we made up in society, which then they can use, to spend on, making more profits and more, or just use it for spending back in the economy or otherwise. But the point is, guess what? If you get into the nuance of, hey, these rich people are bad and they're all out there, and the government is trying to increase taxes because they're just not allowing us to have a nice standard of living in life, like all these things, they exist, but unfortunately they're the name of the game. This is like where we are, for better or worse. So the next step is like, what are we trying to do? What is the next step that you want to do? If you consume more just because, and a simple example, a lot of people who drink a lot, let's just say to numb away their pain and all these type of things, they're basically consuming, and they're consuming to numb something else, because maybe at their work they're doing work but they're not producing that thing that makes them happy. And so if they're not creating at work and they're consuming to numb that pain, it's basically indirectly saying that creation is what gives happiness to many, many people in our human race. If anything, they call humans as builders. We build things, we innovate, we create, we do all these things, right? And the question is, if you've consumed all your life, are you willing to create? Are you willing to try a new hobby, a new, learning of a skill or a trade? Or, I'm not saying go to college and get a degree. You don't need to like learn in that way to then create in a different industry. That's up to you. But if you're also a creator, like myself, where I've created way too much also, and I've realized I need a break. I need a break to literally consume, and not in the, overindulging way, just like literally a break to just like chill. And then you can consume media, you can, movies, TV, whatever, to chill, right? Because that also is inspiration. Like consumption, a lot of people, they look back down on it, but consumption allows us to learn a new lesson, have a new experience, and then take that into our inspiration to then use as a motivation to integrate into action for creation. In simple, consumption will teach us things in terms of how we want to create. And if you're always creating, you could, but you got to be inspired somehow. It doesn't just happen, right? So the simple truth that I knew about myself was that, hey, consumption is not going to get me anywhere. Consumption is me trading my time to earn dollars to then spend said dollars on consuming. But what am I creating on the flip side? If I don't have this inflow, in other words, if I can't spend my time, I need something else to be, creating. And not just creating dollars on dollars like investing in the stock market or otherwise, but it's about using then my time somewhere where I'm creating for myself, where now, yeah, other people can consume the content and otherwise. And that's not good or bad. That's like, if there's value, then do it. If you're just doing it for no reason, that's a different thing. So I hope that this truth, as simple as it is, whatever that truth is for you, are you a parasite or are you a producer? Nothing wrong with either, but understand the trade-offs of both. Parasites will come to you if you're a producer, and if you're producing, there are times you wish, man, it's so easy to just be a parasite, right? But nah, words are words. But I think you get it. Consumption versus creation, production versus parasition. It's not even a word, probably. But thanks for coming to the end. Subscribe. See you in the next one. Peace.